Chief Barger says it's more than just the Quinnipiac houses that are getting broken into, it's also the cars. Sharon McKay hopes her Civic Association's event on October 24th will increase awareness in the Hampden community. Although there is no word yet on what the budget cuts will affect, Del Mastro says any cuts will severely affect the families here. The statistics are grim, but Ellen Shemitz says kids are resilient. North Dakota is making headlines after a federal judge struck down an anti-abortion law. It was the strictest anti-abortion law in the country until yesterday. Plus, have you ever thought your smooth dance moves could find a cure? Some QU kids break it down for charity. We'll be right back.
Oh, I changed my mind.
When it comes to kids, Connecticut isn't planning for its future, nor theirs. Matt Santacroce works at Connecticut Voices for Children, where he studies data for low-income families. He says kids today are not prepared for the future.
These are the kids that are going to make up a larger and larger and larger share of the state's workforce over the next 20 to 30 years. To the extent that these are prospective income tax payers, the state has somewhat of a looming fiscal crisis.
The recent census report says Connecticut child poverty has increased 17% since 2008. 40% of kids in cities like Bridgeport and New Haven live in poverty. Hartford child poverty is at 53%.
So what's happening in Connecticut is that not only are the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, but it's happening at a dramatically accelerated rate. And that means that the likelihood of families being able to pull out of poverty and the likelihood of children having a fair opportunity for education.
Because if these kids are, not as likely to get good jobs, not as likely to stay employed, not as likely to graduate high school.
Kids who are growing up in poverty today do not have the skills to compete in the workforce and can't afford to pay the current income tax.
As this starts to sort of happen on a broad state level, the older, more well-educated white workers are going to be replaced with these kids.
Here at Edgewood Park in New Haven, 1 in 7 of the children that play here are living in poverty. The statistics are grim, but Ellen Shemitz says kids are resilient.
There's tremendous resiliency in children, and there's opportunity, there's curiosity, there's resiliency, and if we can make the kinds of investments that we have the resources to do, make the kind of investments in children today that we need, then they are going to be able to fuel and lead tomorrow. It is in no way a hopeless situation.
Connecticut Voices for Children will be working with the state to motivate businesses to invest in early childhood education, because business today needs to invest in business tomorrow. Emily Seibert, QNN. Kamachi Sharma was excited to rent a house in Hampden, and then her house was broken into.
This whole panel was taken off. So what happened was they kicked the door and they used something here to take this lock out.
Sharma and her roommates came home from their winter break to find their house broken into and several watches and jewelry stolen.
Because just imagine if someone was there, that would be horrible. But, there's nothing else you can do. Just be safe.
Sharma is one of several students whose houses were broken into this January, and some of those houses were owned by Quinnipiac.
Over the winter break, we had several houses along New Road broken into. Those were houses that juniors and seniors lived in.
Chief Barger says it's more than just the Quinnipiac houses that are getting broken into, it's also the cars. People need to make sure their cars are locked and they don't leave their keys in their dashboard.
Don't forget to lock your car. We're talking about houses being broken into here, but a lot of times students will leave an extra key to the house in their car, in their center console, or in their cup holder.
Barger says the Detective Bureau is currently investigating the break-ins. Emily Seibert, QNN. 3 food pantries all saying the same thing.
It is a lot of families.
We've just been picking up families, just been calling, I need food.
The cuts that took place November 1st mean that there's 1.4 million meals missing a month in Connecticut, and that equals about 17 million meals a year that are now lost. So any other cuts to SNAP will be devastating to the food assistance network.
As of November 1st, the federal government cut at least 5.5% of SNAP funds in every state. Households of 1 will lose $11, households of 2, $20, households of 3, $29, and households of 4, $36. This will affect 494,000 Connecticut residents. Mary Ngara says less food stamps mean more people will be rushing to an already diminishing food bank.
So what's happening is if people have less dollars to spend in the grocery store, they're going to turn to the Food Assistance Network for help. So our programs are seeing even more requests for help, and now you've got that compounded with people getting a reduction in benefit. So they are not going to be able to keep up with demand if there's continues to be cuts to SNAP.
Laura Jean Frazier says she can already see a change at Old Saybrook's food pantry over the past month.
We'll have to sort of wait it out a couple more months and see where the numbers go, but they are increasing, and that was the biggest Thanksgiving week that we've had, was 188 families. Normally we have, on a regular week, we have anywhere from 130 to 150 top families usually on a regular week.
St. Anne's is more than just an emergency shelter. It's also a food pantry. But the workers here say the need for more food came before the SNAP changes were even in effect.
Even before it's like the economy, since it's been, I guess, messed up, if you want to say, we have picked up, say, from last year up until now, 1 year ago, the clients that have been coming, we picked up maybe 20, 30 more clients that come here to eat daily.
As the winter months roll in and the cost of utilities rise, food is the first thing people give up.
What's happening is, as the cold winter months set in, people will see their heating bills rise, they have other expenses with the holidays, their food budget is going to be the thing that gives. If you're having a choice between medicine, if you're a senior citizen, or paying for your heating bill, that's the item that is something you could cut back on, but other things are constants.
Emily Seibert, QNN. Hamden's Legislative Council voted to add $125 million worth of pension obligation bonds to a dramatically underfunded pension fund in late July. Ann Altman says these bonds work when a city puts money in during a recession.
Obligation bonds is a way of filling up that pot by selling bonds to the general public, hoping that the value of those bonds will increase because we will invest that money better than the general public can, and in that way we will have not only money in the pension pot but also a little extra.
But how is Hamden missing 86% of their funds? According to Hamden Public Records, only a third of the recommended funds were put in the pension fund in 1998. For the next 3 years, not a single dollar was put in the pension fund. Only $1.5 million was put in the fund over the next 2 years. Sharon McKay, the secretary for the Whitneyville Civic Association, says the council's vote for the pension obligation bonds was unfair.
Several people on the Legislative Council who voted in favor of the pension obligation bond are people who are receiving pensions from the town, and in some cases their spouses are also receiving pensions from the town. I feel that those people should have been disqualified from voting on this very important issue, which is going to affect all of us on our property taxes and our property values for many years to come.
Pension bonds affect more than property taxes. One study looked at 3,000 pension bonds issued from 1986 to 2009. The study found that bonds issued before 1997 have positive returns. Bonds issued during a recession or when the stock market was down are also making money. The others are underwater. The bonds only work when there is higher interest down the line.
You have to look much further than Hamden, which nobody in the Hamden administration does. You have to look at what's going on in China, what's going on in the BRIC countries, that's Brazil, Russia, India, and China, to understand why the world's economy isn't going to take off in the way it did in the early 90s, which is when these pension obligation bonds might have been a good idea.
Sharon McKay hopes her Civic Association's event on October 24th will increase awareness in the Hamden community. That way, members of the community can ask legislative council candidates about things like the pension obligation bonds. That way, citizens are informed and can make the right decision when voting for elected officials in November. Emily Seibert, Q30 News.